Hey, welcome to the Press Box Chronicles with Jeff Pearlman. Hey, welcome to the Press Box Chronicles with Jeff Pearlman, the show where a cranky middle-aged sports writer who has seen it all, that is me, takes you behind the scenes and into the stories. I am your host, Jeff Pearlman. And when I was a kid growing up on the mean streets of Mahopac, New York, and when I see mean streets, I mean nothing happened there. Twice a year, maybe 3 times a year, my mom, Joan Pearlman, would drag me to nearby Carmel, New York, and the Stormville Flea Market, which was this enormous flea market that was spread out across a largely abandoned airport. And the Stormville Flea Market was just a buffet of nothing. It was bags of nuts. It was piles of patches. It was used clothing. It was not fun. And it was dusty, and it was usually hot, and it sucked. And I would wander around on my own for like an hour. And one day, I'm probably 14 years old. This is the late 1980s, mid to late 1980s. And I'm wandering around, and I see this guy selling baseball cards and posters. And the posters are rolled up, and you have to unfurl them to look at them. And the posters are 50 cents each. And I look at the posters, and there's one of like Don Baylor. Don't really care. There's one of Dale Earnhardt. Don't care. There's one of Eddie Murray. Don't care. But there was one poster where I unfurled it, and I was like, yes, I will give my 50 cents for this poster. And I have it here, still framed 40 years later-ish. And it is Mark the Bird Fidrych. And if you are a kid of the 70s or 80s, Mark the Bird Fidrych, he represents something awesome. And it is hope, it's optimism, it's coming out of nowhere, it's serendipitous joy, it's a merging of Sesame Street and Major League Baseball and a certain 1970s time period of polyester and crazy hair and afros and big chains and everything about baseball that was so aesthetically pleasing of the 1970s. And that is why today I'm going to dive into the legacy, brilliance, tragedy of Mark the Bird Fidrych. So every now and then in sports, you get a colorful phenom who comes along and captures the imagination of a fan base. I remember when Chris Sabo was a young third baseman with the Cincinnati Reds, and his nickname was Spuds McKenzie, because he looked like the beer dog. Or you have Dontrelle Willis with his high leg kick. Or you just have guys who come along, and it's not just that they're great. It's that they're great and they're colorful. And such is the case with Mark Fidrych. So Mark Fidrych, he's out of Worcester, Massachusetts, and he is a 10th round draft pick of the Detroit Tigers in 1974. He's a right-handed pitcher. Nobody knows that much about him. He's not a phenom. He's not one of these guys who's like highly talked about. He had some success in high school, and the Tigers used a 10th round draft pick on a high school pitcher. Well, in 1974, he's pitching in rookie league in Bristol, Virginia. And he has a coach with the team named Jeff Hogan. And Jeff Hogan looks at Mark Fidrych and he starts calling him the Bird, because Mark Fidrych has this blonde, curly, sort of wild hair. And Jeff Hogan, who was a former baseball player at Florida State, former minor league player, says, you remind me of Big Bird. You remind me of Big Bird. And he starts calling him the Bird. And before long, everyone is calling Mark Fidrych the Bird. And Fidrych is a very good minor league pitcher. 1974, 1975, pitches really well in the minor leagues. He's 3-0 with a 2.38 ERA and with Bristol, and he rises quickly. 1975, A-ball, AA, AAA. Well, in 1976, he finds himself in spring training in Lakeland, Florida with the Detroit Tigers, and he has a real chance of making the staff. Now, it's an outside chance, but he has a chance. And in spring training, people start noticing something about Mark Fidrych. And it's, he can pitch, and he's kind of eccentric. He's kind of weird. And I found an article from the Jackson Citizen Patriot, March 27th, 1976, Jackson, Michigan. Paper does not exist anymore. Headline, Fidgety Fidrych. And it says, flake or not, Tiger rookie pitcher impresses Houck. And it says, the lead is, left-handers, it has been said, are often screwballs, flakes, oddballs. Mark Fidrych is a right-hander. A lot of people figure I should be a lefty, he said. Flake or not, Fidrych left a good impression on Detroit manager Ralph Houck by pitching 3 shutout innings Friday in the Tigers' 1-0 exhibition victory over the St. Louis Cardinals. And the story goes on to talk about how crazy Mark Fidrych is. And it's an early indicator of this thing that's coming. He seems like he talks to the baseball when he's on the mound. Like there's people watching the game, see Fidrych, and he seems to be mumbling. And he's always going to the mound and carving the mound and messing with the mound. And he has his hair popping out, and he's really lanky, and he has this thick sort of Boston Worcester accent. And after games, he's always like congratulating people, thanking people, waving to the fans, tipping his hats to the fans. And it's not cocky. It's endearing. He's 21 years old. And he makes the Tigers out of spring training. And people are shocked by this. And he actually does something really funny. He poses for his first baseball card. Back in the day, baseball cards were enormous. And if you were a baseball player, it was a huge deal. And he, when Topps comes, he poses as a lefty instead of a righty. And he later gets caught. And it's really funny. So he makes the team out of spring training to the shock of everyone. And on April 20th, 1976, Mark Fidrych makes his big league debut out of the bullpen against the Oakland A's. He comes in, he faces Don Baylor, a really good player, gives up a single, A's win, 0 innings pitched, 1 hit. That's his first stat line. Well, we fast forward to May 15th, 1976, and Mark Fidrych gets his first start for the Detroit Tigers. And it's in Detroit, and it's awesome. It's absolutely awesome. And I just want to say, going back in time, the Detroit Free Press, and I really learned this from working on this story, they had a beat writer named Jim Hawkins who was covering the Tigers and just captured beautifully the phenomenon of Mark Fidrych. And the headline from this story about his debut start is "The Bird 2 hits Cleveland 2-1." The subhead is "Fidgety Fidrych loses no-hitter in the 7th." And the lead was, Mark Fidrych couldn't believe it. But then Mark Fidrych is a bit unbelievable himself. For 6 incredible innings, the Tigers' gangling, curly-haired rookie right-hander held the Cleveland Indians hitless and helpless in his first major league start Saturday afternoon before finally setting in for a satisfying 2-1, 2-hit triumph. But it was the way he did it that was so unbelievable. Fidrych talked to the ball. He talked to himself. He even refused to let the grounds crew fix the mound in the 6th inning, helping himself to a handful of sand and personally patting it in place himself. No doubt about it, Mark Fidrych is unreal. He is also undefeated. And I need to really paint this picture for you because it's important. No one knows who Mark Fidrych is. Okay, he's just a rookie, 21-year-old kid. He was not a phenomenon. He was not a phenom. Nobody talked about him. A lot of people didn't think he'd make the staff. He makes it. He's now penciled in as their 5th starter. He makes his start at Detroit Stadium for a not very good Detroit Tiger team. This is the Tigers of Tom Bereiser and Ron LaFleur and Rusty Staub. Mediocre team. They wind up having a losing record. And nobody really gives a crap. But Fidrych makes his start. And on the mound, he's literally on his knees doing piles with the dirt, shuffling the dirt, taking it, manicuring the dirt. He's on the mound talking to the baseball. And now it really looks like he's talking to the baseball. He has the ball in his hand, and people are imagining him saying, "Baseball, you need to do this well. Help me out here. I need your help, baseball." Nobody knows what he's saying. And he probably weighs 160 pounds. He's all elbows and knees and hair. And it's just awesome. And after the game, Ralph Houck, the Indians manager, says, those things he does out there, like manicuring the mound, it's okay with me. Even when he's pointing toward the plate, he's aiming. He's concentrating like a horseshoe pitcher, or maybe a bowler sighting his mark, but he's really concentrating. Because Fidrych would actually point to the plate before he threw the baseball, which no one did. And in different times or with a different athlete, it would look like he was talking shit or saying to the batter, "I'm coming to get you." But that's not what he did. He was just pointing. And after the game, he was asked, "Why are you messing with the mound? Why are you messing with the dirt?" And he said, "If I'm pitching good, I don't want anyone messing around with the mound except for me." May 25th, makes another start. It's his 2nd start. He holds the Red Sox to 6 hits and 2 runs. He only gives up a Carl Yastrzemski home run. And the UPI lead, which I love, is if Mark Fidrych talked to the baseball, Carl Yastrzemski must have overheard the conversation. And Fidrych made one mistake. But he lost the game, but he pitched brilliantly. May 31st, makes another start, goes 11 innings, complete game, 5-4 win over the Brewers. June 5th, second straight, 11 inning complete game, beats Bert Blyleven and the Texas Rangers 3-2. And it's kind of crazy looking back and the way baseball is managed now. But he was throwing complete game after complete game after complete game. He literally went back to back 11 innings. And nobody was thinking about, well, this is a 21-year-old kid. We need to preserve his arm. This is a 21-year-old kid. Let's watch out for him. It was, keep him out there. Keep it going. And after the game, you know what you would do to take care of your arm? You drink beer and you would ice it. And that was it. Maybe you take a Tylenol. That was it. And he is like racking up innings, but he's also this phenomenon. And on June 11th, Bird Mania, as it was called, really takes over in Detroit. You got 36,377 people at Detroit Stadium. It's a Friday night game, and it's the Angels and the Tigers. And it's Mark Fidrych against Nolan Ryan. And it's actually family night at Tiger Stadium, so full families get in for a discounted price. And Fidrych gives up one earned run, and the Tigers win 4-3 on a walk-off single by Alex Johnson. And the stadium just goes crazy. And the Free Press has a headline the next day, Fidrych's magic works again. And it's just awesome. It's this beautiful, magical run this guy's going on. And people start showing up. I can't understate this. The Tigers are not a good baseball team, but the Tigers are now the sort of center of the baseball universe. Every fifth start, there's Mark Fidrych, and fans are coming out, and they're starting to wear Fidrych wigs, and they're buying Fidrych t-shirts, and they're all talking about the bird, the bird, the bird, the bird. And there's this moment, there's a really big, awesome moment. And it's June 28th, 1976. Nationally televised. This used to be a thing, believe it or not. Monday Night Baseball on TV. And it's the Yankees, the New York Yankees, and the Detroit Tigers. And Mark Fidrych is I love this about this guy. He's so innocent. And he knows so little about baseball, the inner workings of baseball. He does an interview before the game, which nowadays starting pitchers never do, but Fidrych didn't give a crap. He was just so happy to be here. Before the game, he said, he's asked about the Yankees, like, have you ever heard about Mickey Mantle? And he says, yeah, he was a ball player, but now he's retired. And then a reporter says, what about Roger Maris? And he says, nah, I've never heard of him. And then he said, what do you know about the 1968 Tigers, who were a legendary Detroit team? And he goes, yeah, I was only 11, but I've never heard of them either. I was too busy trying to make a living carrying groceries and carrying golf clubs, anything to make a buck. I don't know anything about the Tigers. And there's 47,855 fans at Tiger Stadium to see the Yankees, the hated Yankees, the Yankees of Thurman Munson and Chris Chambliss, this Greg Nettles. And Fidrych takes the mound, and the Tigers win 5-1. And the game only lasts a minute and 51 seconds, which is absolutely crazy. And the Detroit Free Press had a columnist named Joe Falls, and he wrote, you should have been in the place at about 8:20 when he went down to the bullpen to warm up. If you believe it, they stood up and cheered, and they kept standing, waiting for his first warm-up toss. And when he threw the first one to Bill Freehand, they cheered even louder. You should have heard them when he started smoothing out the pitcher's mound in the top of the second. You'd have thought he was getting ready to pitch the pennant clincher. The place was an absolute bedlam when he closed out the Yankees in the ninth inning. Who is this kid, anyway? And Mark Fidrych beats the Yankees, throws a complete game. And when the final out is made, it's honest to God, I'm not just saying this, one of my favorite moments in sports history. Fidrych is so freaking innocently happy. He's 21 years old. He just beat the New York Yankees. And to watch him go around and shake everyone's hands, shake the umpire's hands, shake his teammates as they come off the field and thank them, hugs, handshakes, tips of the caps. And he's dumbfounded by all these fans cheering for him and throwing love on him. It is amazing. And he walks into the dugout, and there's a standing ovation and a curtain call. And Mark Fidrych comes back onto the field, and he waves his hat to the fans, and he's shaking policemen's hands on top of the dugout, and he's shaking fans' hands. And he has this like raw, joyful, base level innocence. Like he can't believe this is happening to him. He can't believe this is happening to him. I love every moment of it. I truly love every moment of it. And Jim Hawkins in the Detroit Free Press wrote, his name is Mark Fidrych, and there's nobody in baseball quite like him. He's fresh, he's funny, he is fantastic. He nearly filled the park Monday night, then mowed down the mighty New York Yankees, runaway leaders in the American League East 5-1, for his 8th win of what has so far been an absolutely incredible year for the flaky, frizzy, right-handed rookie. And the near-capacity crowd of 47,855 positively went wild. Not since the days of Denny McClain has any baseball player so captivated the city. And Fidrych's rookie year, it's just awesome. He winds up winning 19 games. He finishes second in the Cy Young Award to Jim Palmer. He's a rookie of the year, obviously. And he basically transforms baseball in Detroit single-handedly. Twice he's on the cover of Sports Illustrated. He winds up on the cover of Rolling Stone, which never happens for a baseball player. He's on the cover of Inside Sports, the Sporting News. He just becomes a national phenomenon. And 1976 goes down as the summer of love, of the summer of Mark Fidrych, of everything that can be possible in baseball, everything brilliant about the game at its best. Joy, innocence, happiness, togetherness, cohesion. The Tigers are this really racially diverse, internationally diverse team, and they're really tight, and Fidrych just loves all of them, and nothing ever lasts forever. Hey, this is Jeff Pearlman, and as many of you know, I have my 11th book, Only God Can Judge Me, The Many Lives of Tupac Shakur, coming out on October 21st. And the book is available for pre-order everywhere now. I have a special deal. If you pre-order the book and email me at tupacbook1@gmail.com a screenshot with proof of your order, I will send you, from my very own collection, Tupac stickers, Tupac bookmark, and a signed book plate that you can put in the front. And if you want it made out to someone, to Jim, to Steve, to Bob, to Fred, to whoever, I will happily personalize it. The book comes out October 21st. If you pre-order, which I would usually appreciate, this is how I make a living, and send me proof of your pre-order to tupacbook1@gmail.com. I will hook you up with some really good Tupac stuff. So a couple years ago, I wrote a book about Bo Jackson called The Last Folk Hero. And when I was a kid, Bo Jackson was the phenomenon. He was this kid out of Auburn who ran a 4.13 40, who picked baseball over football, then wound up playing for the Royals and the Raiders, Pro Bowler, All-Star, everything going for him. Indestructible phenomenon. And then in a playoff game against the Cincinnati Bengals at the LA Coliseum, he has his hip torn out of the socket and he's never the same. And for me, it was a reminder, an eye-opening one, that phenoms just don't last forever. You think they are because they feel almost seasonal. They feel like spring, the breeze of spring, or the sunshine of summer. Bo Jackson, Mark Fidrych, Don Mattingly until he had a bad back. Your favorite running back until he tore up his knee. Whoever it is, phenoms don't last. And in the aftermath of the 1976 baseball season, Fidrych was everywhere. Cover of SI, Rolling Stone. He teamed up with Tom Clark to write an autobiography called No Big Deal. Fans in Detroit found out where he was getting haircuts and would go there and pick up, not joking, the trimmings of his curly locks. That's how crazy the bird fever was. Well, he reports to Lakeland for spring training, and all the talk of the Tigers is Mark the Bird Fidrych. And on March 22nd, 1977, Fidrych is shagging balls in the outfield at Marchant Stadium, and his knee buckles. And he winds up having a knee strain. And he tears some cartilage in the knee as well, and he misses a bunch of time. And then he comes back and he's pitching well, and he's 6-2, and he's the phenom again, and he's going to be an all-star again. And the Tigers travel to Baltimore. And this is July 4th, 1977, so Independence Day in Baltimore. And Mark Fidrych has never actually pitched at Baltimore's Memorial Stadium. So the stadium is packed, 45,339 fans in Baltimore to see Mark the Bird Fidrych, who's having another great season, all right? Again, he's 6-2, he's pitching well. And I'm going to read the article by Lou Hatter from the Baltimore Sun from the next day's paper. The Orioles routed Detroit's folk hero pitching sensation Mark the Bird Fidrych with a 6-run broadside in the 6th inning last night and whipped the Tigers 6-4 in the opener of a 4-game series at Memorial Stadium. Baltimore's rally from a 2-0 deficit came after two were retired by last season's American League Rookie of the Year, who had coasted into the 6th on a 4-hitter. A Memorial Stadium crowd of 45,339 were stunned almost as suddenly as the 22-year-old Bengal right-hander by the unexpected turn of events. And basically, the Orioles are lighting Mark Fidrych up, and it doesn't even make sense. And after the game, his arm is killing him. His arm is absolutely killing him, and he doesn't know why. And originally, doctors say, well, it's probably tendonitis. It's probably tendonitis. But it turns out Mark Fidrych has 2 tears in his rotator cuff, as well as an overgrowth in the bone under the armpit. And he finishes the 77 season with just a 6-4 record, 2.89 ERA. And it wasn't even reported this way at the time, but it's the saga of a young pitcher who's just overused and overused and overused during this phenomenal rookie year. And his arm is dead and is battered. And he doesn't know what to do with himself. And the Tigers don't know what to do. He doesn't pitch the rest of the year. And then there's talk of his big comeback in 1978. He goes 2-0 in 1978 with a 2.45 ERA. His arm is hurt again. 1979, 0-3 with a 10.43 ERA. Doesn't pitch again that year. 1980 is the last shot, 2-3 with a 5.68 ERA. And all of a sudden, the bird, the guy who everyone has sort of dreamed of, the innocent Mark Fidrych, is done. And I found an article from the Detroit Free Press, August 13th, 1980. And it's just heartbreaking. All Detroit was buzzing about the bird Tuesday, several hours before Mark Fidrych was scheduled to start his first major league game in 15 months. The 25-year-old right-hander, recalled Friday from a season-long exile with the Tigers' Evansville farm team, was drawing a sold-out crowd of 50,000 fans to Tiger Stadium. It was the 4th time Fidrych had tried to come back from the tendonitis that bothered his right shoulder in 1977. And he pitched like crap, and he got rocked. And at that point, 1980, after his final comeback attempt, the Tigers give up. And they actually release Mark Fidrych. Mark Fidrych actually asked for his release. His final start in Detroit is heartbreaking. His final run in Detroit is heartbreaking. And when you're young, when you're 25, and you've been a phenom, and you're the talk of the town, and suddenly nobody gives a shit about you, it is fucking crushing. And Mark Fidrych is smiley, go-lucky, happy, thrilled. All of a sudden, he doesn't know what to do. And he actually signs with the Boston Red Sox, even though his arm is absolutely killing him. He signs with the Boston Red Sox, and he bounces around for the next 3 years in the minors. And in June 1983, he's pitching for AAA Pawtucket, which is not far away from where he grew up in Worcester. Pitching for AAA Pawtucket, and he's 2-5 with a 6.8 ERA in AAA. And guys are just lighting up on Mark Fidrych. And his fastball doesn't have snap. His curveball's got nothing. He used to throw a nifty little knuckler. It doesn't knuckle. He's got nothing. And there's an article from Lee Montville of the Boston Globe. And it's so sad. And it's from that year, 1983. It came out on July 2nd. So this is a couple weeks after he was released. And Lee Montville, who I worked with at SI, was one of the great writers of all time, wrote, "There's one final kid. There was one final baseball to be autographed. The love affair had to die with an appropriate lump in the throat. Are you pitching tonight?" the kid asked outside the minor league ballpark Wednesday night in Norfolk, Virginia. "No," Mark Fidrych said, signing his name. "I hope you're pitching tonight," the kid continued, not hearing. "I want to see you do all your antics, your things. I want to see that." The soft June evening was stopped for just that moment. The kid, Mark Fidrych, there was nowhere to go and nothing to do. There was only the truth. "Well, you ain't going to see the antics anymore, buddy," Mark Fidrych said. "It's done. Understand? No one's going to see him unless maybe they go to some softball diamond. It's finished." The kid only stared. Did he understand after all? Did he know what was being said? Mark Fidrych walked into the park, a lame duck baseball player, watching a final Pawtucket Red Sox doubleheader against the Tidewater Tides, and that was that. The moment, at the end of all the moments, was gone. The bittersweet baseball career of Mark Fidrych was finished. So there's this idea in sports or in music or in any celebrity endeavor, that once you're a celebrity, you're always a celebrity, and that you're wealthy and you're living by a swimming pool and that you have tons of fans and you have a maid and a butler or whatever, fancy car. Mark Fidrych didn't make that much money during his baseball career. Probably made $1 million total if you take into account the endorsements, contract, the book deal, but not a ton of money. And after he retires, he and his wife, Anne, who he wound up marrying in 1986, they moved to a 107-acre farm in Northborough, Massachusetts. They have a daughter, Jessica, who winds up being a chef and restaurant owner. And he fixes up this farmhouse and he works as a contractor. Mark Fidrych, the bird, the phenom, works as a contractor hauling gravel and asphalt in a 10-wheeler. And on weekends, he helps out at Chet's Diner in Northborough, which is his mother-in-law's business. He's content but heartbroken. There's an interview I saw online where he talks about how Magnum PI, the old Tom Selleck show, where he always wore the Tigers hat, would reference Mark Fidrych. And he's like, why wouldn't he ever have me on the show? Why wouldn't he ever have me on as a guest? And he talks about life as a phenomenon and then life as a nobody, and how it's just jaw-dropping how nobody cares anymore. And that was Mark Fidrych afterwards. I think he was happy being a small town guy back in Massachusetts, but I also think he was heartbroken knowing what could have been. And it kept trying to come back and it kept trying to come back, and the arm just never healed. And it's April 13th, 2009. And Mark Fidrych is at work at his home. It's 2:30 in the afternoon. And he's beneath his 10-wheel dump truck. And somehow his shirt gets caught in a rigging. And he actually suffocates to death. It gets entangled with a spinning power shaft. And he's suffocated on his clothing. And a friend finds Mark Fidrych on his property dead. And the outpouring after he died was phenomenal and heartbreaking and crushing. He was 54 years old, and old Tiger teammates flash back to what he was. You know, opponents talked about this splendorous summer of 1976. And Mark Fidrych and his death, to me, it didn't just symbolize sort of the sadness of a once hopeful sports career coming to an end. It symbolized what happens when we thrust fame upon someone and then we forget about them. And sometimes when they die, we pay no attention. And other times when they die, we're reminded of the greatness and we're given those feelings again. And I think in the aftermath of Mark Fidrych's life, in the immediate aftermath, when we're reading the tributes, and the LA Times did an obituary, and the New York Times did an obituary, and the Detroit Free Press did an obituary, we were reminded and gifted with one last memory of everything that Mark the Bird Fidrych meant to us as a baseball phenomenon in the summer of 1976. That is a wrap for this episode of Press Box Chronicles with Jeff Pearlman. Please leave a comment below on what stories you'd like to hear. If there's a particular figure you're interested in, let me know. Also a reminder, my new book, Only God Can Judge Me, The Many Lives of Tupac Shakur, is available wherever you buy books. Please make sure you like and subscribe. Follow me on TikTok at Jeff Pearlman Author and Bluesky at Jeff Pearlman. Thank you for diving behind the scenes and digging into the story. We'll see you next time on Press Box Chronicles.